Hello and welcome back to Mr. English Lab. My name is Laura, and I'm here to guide you on your journey to clear, confident, and natural English. If you're new here, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you never miss a lesson. Your support truly helps this channel grow. All right, take a deep breath, relax, and let's begin today's session. I want you to imagine something very simple, something quiet, something almost invisible. Imagine a small seed in the ground, just a tiny one, so small that you could hold it in your hand and maybe not even feel it. The seed does not look powerful. It does not look special. It does not look like something that could change a whole forest or shape a whole landscape. But if you watch that seed every day, if you give it a little water every morning, if you let the sun touch it a little longer each afternoon, something begins to happen, something small, something slow, something gentle, but something real. First, it becomes a tiny plant. Then a small green stem. Then one day a leaf. Not much. Not impressive. Not a big moment. But it is the beginning of something that can grow into a tree, something that can give shade, something that can give fruit, something that can stand tall for 100 years. This is what daily habits are like. They do not look powerful in the beginning. They do not feel important at first. They seem too small, too easy, too simple to make any big difference. But every big change in life starts with something so small that most people ignore it. And that is exactly where our story begins today, here in Mr. English Lab, where we explore the power of simple English, simple thoughts, and simple steps to change your life one day at a time. Today, we are going to walk together through the quiet magic of daily habits, and we are going to do it slowly, gently, clearly, like a guide walking next to you on a long, peaceful road. I want you to hear every word, feel every image, and imagine every moment in your mind. So take a breath, relax your shoulders, and let this story unfold inside you. Now, imagine a person named Leo. Leo is not special in any big way. He is not famous. He is not rich. He is not extremely talented. He is just an ordinary person living an ordinary life, like millions of other people in the world. He wakes up each morning with the sun coming through the same small window. He makes the same simple breakfast. He goes to the same job. He comes back to the same home. But inside him, there is a quiet feeling that something is missing. Maybe you know this feeling too. It is not sadness. It is not depression. It is not fear. It is more like a soft whisper that says, I want something better. I want something more. Leo does not know what that more is. He cannot describe it. He cannot explain it. But he feels it every day, especially in the morning when he looks at himself in the mirror. He sees the same face, the same tired eyes, the same routine, and he wonders, can I change my life? Can I become someone different? But then, like many people, he tells himself the same excuses people say all the time. Maybe later. Maybe next month. Maybe when things get easier. Maybe when I have more time. And because of these excuses, his life stays the same. Day after day. Week after week. Year after year. One evening, after a long day, Leo sits on his small balcony. The sky is becoming dark and the city lights are turning on one by one, like stars waking up in the wrong part of the sky. Leo feels tired, not only in his body, but also in his mind. He feels like he is walking in circles, like he is living the same day again and again. And then, a simple thought appears in his mind, soft but strong. What if I try something small? Not a big change. Not a huge plan. Just something small. He is surprised by this thought. It feels too simple. But it also feels real. The next morning, Leo wakes up 10 minutes earlier than usual. Not an hour. Not 2 hours. Just 10 minutes. At first, he wants to go back to sleep, but he remembers the thought from the night before. So he sits on the edge of his bed, stretching his back, rubbing his eyes, feeling the quiet of the early morning. He walks to the kitchen and pours a small glass of water. Then he drinks it slowly. That's all. No big routine. No huge change. Just one glass of water. One small action. But something interesting happens inside him. He feels proud. Proud of something so small? Yes, because it is the first moment in a long time where he chose to do something on purpose, something he decided, something he controlled. For the first time in many weeks, he feels like he is steering his own life, even if it is just for 10 minutes. This tiny moment becomes the first step of his new daily habit. He doesn't know it yet, but it is the beginning of a transformation. And transformation does not begin with a loud noise or a big explosion. It begins with small choices, quiet steps, tiny actions, a glass of water, a few minutes of breathing, a simple stretch, a tiny promise you make to yourself and actually keep. Over the next several days, Leo continues waking up 10 minutes early. The glass of water becomes a part of his morning. He starts to notice that it makes him feel awake, fresh, and calm. He begins to enjoy those 10 minutes of peace before the world starts moving around him. And slowly, without pushing himself, without forcing anything, he adds something else. One day, he decides to write for 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes. He writes a simple sentence. I want to feel better today. Another day, he writes, I want to be patient. Another day, he writes, I want to understand myself more. He writes slowly, gently, with simple words. He is not writing a book. He is not writing something important. He is only listening to himself, and that alone makes him feel stronger. But as the days continue, Leo starts to face challenges. One morning, he wakes up tired. Another morning, he wakes up stressed. Another morning, he wakes up late. He thinks, maybe I should skip the habit today. It's just one day. But then he remembers the seed. One day of skipping water might not kill the seed, but many days of skipping can stop it from growing. So Leo makes a promise to himself. Even on tough days, he will do something small. Maybe he cannot write that day. Maybe he cannot wake up early that day. But he will drink the water. He will do the smallest possible version so the habit stays alive. And this idea, the idea of doing tiny actions on difficult days, becomes the heart of his journey. One evening, after many days of small habits, Leo feels something surprising. He feels lighter. Not physically, but emotionally. He feels clearer. His mind feels less crowded. His thoughts feel more organized. He feels like he finally has space inside him to think, to breathe, to grow. He begins to understand that habits are not just routines. They're not just tasks. They're small messages you send to yourself every day. Messages that say, I care about myself. I am trying. I am growing. I deserve better. And these messages, even if they come from simple actions, slowly begin to change the way you see yourself. Any night, Leo talks to a friend. His friend asks, you seem different lately. What happened? Leo laughs because he does not know how to explain it. Nothing big changed. He didn't start a new job. He didn't move to a new place. He didn't go on a long journey. He didn't read a life-changing book. All he did was drink water in the morning, write a few sentences, stretch for a minute, breathe slowly, and wake up a little earlier. But somehow, these tiny habits have started to create something new inside him, a sense of control, a sense of direction, a sense of becoming someone he always wanted to be. So he simply answers, I started doing small things every day. His friend looks confused, almost disappointed. That's it? That's all you did? And Leo smiles gently and says, yes. And it's enough. Walking home after that conversation, Leo reflects deeply. For many years, He believed that change required dramatic decisions, powerful motivation, strong discipline, and big goals. But now, through his own quiet experience, he sees the truth. Real change begins when you teach your mind and your body to trust you again. And trust grows when you keep your promises, even tiny ones. That is why daily habits work. They are small promises you make to yourself and keep again and again until they become a part of who you are. As the days turn into weeks, Leo begins to experience something he never expected: momentum. Momentum is the gentle force that makes a small habit easier every time you do it. It is like a tiny snowball rolling down a hill, growing slowly at first, then faster, then bigger, then stronger. Habits create momentum when they become natural, automatic, and effortless. And when momentum appears, everything changes. What felt difficult at the beginning becomes simple now. What felt strange becomes normal. What felt heavy feels light. What felt like work feels like peace. One morning, Leo wakes up without an alarm. He feels fresh. He feels awake. He feels ready. He goes to the kitchen, pours his water, drinks it slowly, and writes a few words in his notebook. He feels grateful. He feels proud. He feels like these habits are not something he does anymore, but something he is. They have become a part of his identity. And that is when he realizes something powerful. Daily habits do not just change your routine. They change your identity. They change the story you tell yourself about who you are. And when your story changes, your life changes. But just as everything seems perfect, a new challenge comes. One week, his work becomes stressful. He has long hours, urgent tasks, unexpected problems. He comes home late, exhausted, frustrated, drained. His habits begin to feel heavy again. He wakes up late. He forgets to write. He skips the stretching. The momentum slows down. And one morning, when he opens his notebook, he sees that he missed 4 whole days. He feels disappointed. He feels like a failure. He thinks, I ruined everything. I broke the chain. I should just give up. But then, something unexpected happens. He takes a breath, closes his eyes, and remembers the journey. He remembers the first small step. He remembers the seed. He remembers the promise he made to himself. On difficult days, do the smallest version. So instead of feeling guilty, instead of blaming himself, instead of quitting, he chooses something different. He chooses kindness. He chooses patience. He chooses to begin again with the smallest action. He drinks a small glass of water. That's all. But that tiny act becomes a powerful message. I am still here. I am still trying. I am still growing. And that morning becomes the moment when Leo understands one of the greatest truths about habits. Success is not about never falling. Success is about always returning to the path. As the sun rises that morning, as the light fills his room, as he stands quietly with the empty glass in his hand, Leo feels something warm inside him. He feels resilience. Resilience is the strength to continue even when things go wrong. And this strength, he realizes, was created by the tiny habits he practiced every day. The habits built his resilience. His resilience protects his habits. And together, they transform his life. And now, my friend, as you listen to this story, maybe you are thinking about your own life, your own routines, your own mornings, your own moments of wanting to change something inside yourself. Maybe a small idea is forming inside you, soft but strong, like the one Leo had on his balcony. Maybe something inside you is saying, what if I try something small? Maybe you feel ready to choose one tiny habit, not 5, not 10, not a whole list, just one. One small promise you can keep tomorrow morning. And maybe, just maybe, this small habit will be the beginning of something beautiful, something slow, something gentle, something powerful. This is the first step of the journey. The first seed. the first moment of becoming someone new. And in the next section, we will follow Leo as he learns how habits shape the mind, how the brain builds patterns, how identity grows from repetition, and how small actions, done daily, can rewrite the story of your entire life. But before we move forward, take a breath, reflect on what you heard, and remember this simple truth. Transformation begins not with a big decision, but with a tiny step you choose to repeat. When Leo woke up the next morning, something felt different, though he could not explain what it was. The sunlight entering his room looked the same as always, soft and warm, touching the walls with its gentle golden color. The air was the same, calm and cool. The sound of the city outside, the distant cars, the voices, the soft hum of morning life, it all felt familiar. And yet, inside Leo, there was a small sense of strength, like a warm flame quietly growing in a dark room. He stood there for a moment, breathing slowly, letting the feelings settle inside him. He did not hurry. He did not rush. He simply allowed himself to be present. When he walked to the kitchen and drank his morning water, he felt as if he was not just drinking water, but sending a message into the deepest part of his mind. A message that said, "I can begin again." This tiny moment was the quiet start of a much deeper journey, one that would lead Leo to understand how habits are built inside the architecture of the human mind, and how small actions, repeated often, shape the thoughts, feelings, and identity of a person. As he sat at his small wooden table, notebook open in front of him, pen resting lightly in his hand, he wrote a simple sentence, "Today I want to understand myself." He looked at the words for a long moment. They were not complicated words, not poetic words, but they felt real. He did not know exactly what he meant by "understand myself," but he felt that this sentence carried a truth he had been ignoring for many years. In the past, he would wake up, rush into the day, do everything automatically, almost without thinking. But now, with these tiny habits, he felt like he was slowing down, like he could see his own thoughts more clearly, like he could finally listen to the whispers inside him. And listening, he realized, was something he had not done in a very long time. Later that day, while walking to work, Leo noticed something he had never paid attention to, the way his mind seemed to repeat the same thoughts again and again, like a quiet echo bouncing inside a cave. He heard himself thinking, "I hope today is not too difficult," and then the same thought returned. "I hope today is not too difficult." It felt like an old habit, a mental habit, one that had repeated for so long that it became automatic, just like waking up or brushing his teeth. He wondered how many thoughts inside his mind were not truly his, but simply habits, habits of fear, habits of doubt, habits of worry, habits created by years of repeating the same patterns. And for the first time, he realized that mental habits were as powerful as physical ones. At work, Leo found himself distracted. Not in a bad way, but in a curious way. He kept thinking about why the brain holds onto certain habits and releases others. He remembered reading somewhere that the brain likes to save energy, that routines help it move through the day without working too hard. That made sense to him. After all, when he first began his morning habits, they felt difficult, new, heavy. But now they felt lighter. They felt easier. His brain had accepted them. His brain was beginning to build a new pattern. And that gave him a strange sense of hope. If the brain can build helpful habits as easily as unhelpful ones, then maybe change is not as impossible as he once believed. During his lunch break, Leo sat alone beside a small fountain near his office. The water flowed quietly, creating a simple rhythm that felt peaceful to listen to. As he watched the water move, he began to reflect on how his old habits had controlled his life without him even noticing. He remembered the way he used to stay up late scrolling on his phone, not because he wanted to, but because it had become automatic. He remembered the way he used to skip breakfast, not because he didn't have time, but because it was a pattern he never questioned. He remembered the way he used to start each day in a hurry, rushing, pushing, stressing, without breathing, without pausing, without thinking. These habits were small, but they shaped his mood, his energy, his decisions, and even his confidence. And now, with his new morning routine, he realized that changing habits is not about forcing your life into a new shape. It's about slowly building a new pattern, one simple step at a time. That afternoon, Leo had a conversation with his coworker, Maya. She was someone he trusted, someone who always seemed to understand things deeply. They sat together in the small office kitchen, sipping warm tea. Maya noticed the calmness in his eyes and the steadiness in his voice. "You seem different," she said gently. "More grounded. More present." Leo smiled softly. "I'm trying small habits," he said. "Just tiny things every morning." Maya nodded, her eyes thoughtful. "You know," she said, "habits are like the stories we tell ourselves. If you repeat a story every day, your mind starts to believe it. And when your mind believes it, your life begins to reflect it." Her words stayed with him long after the conversation ended. He kept thinking about the idea that habits are stories. Maybe his new habits were teaching him a new story, that he was capable, that he was calm, that he was someone who could grow. When the day ended, Leo walked home slowly, taking in the small details around him, the sound of footsteps on the sidewalk, the rustling of leaves in the trees, the golden color of the late afternoon sun. He felt more aware of the world than usual, as if practicing small habits had opened a window inside him. He remembered something he once heard: when the mind becomes calm, the world becomes clearer. And that felt true. His mind was slowly calming because of the gentle structure created by his daily habits. A small routine gave his thoughts a peaceful place to rest. That night, Leo sat on his balcony again, just like the night when this journey began. But now he felt different. The city lights looked brighter, almost softer. The air felt cleaner. The silence felt warmer. He closed his eyes, rested his hands on his knees, and breathed slowly. With each breath, he felt more connected to himself, like he was finally meeting a part of him that had been waiting for many years. He realized something important. Habits are not just actions. Habits are conversations between you and yourself. They are small acts of trust. And trust grows slowly. The next morning, when Leo repeated his routine again, water, writing, stretching, he felt something almost magical. He felt that his habits were no longer choices he had to make. They were becoming natural. They were becoming integrated into the structure of his identity. And as he stood there, watching the morning light fill his kitchen, he realized that habits do something powerful. They shape your belief in who you are. If you practice small habits of care, you start to believe you are someone worth caring for. If you practice small habits of discipline, you start to believe you are someone capable of discipline. If you practice small habits of reflection, you start to believe you are someone who can grow. And these beliefs are not small at all. They change everything. Later that week, Leo began reading short articles about the brain. Not scientific ones, just simple ones that explained how habits work. He learned that the brain loves repetition. That every time you repeat an action, a small connection forms between the brain cells. And every time you repeat the action again, the connection grows stronger. He imagined it like walking through a field of tall grass. The first time you walk through, the grass is thick. It's hard to push through. But if you walk that same path every day, the grass starts to bend. The path becomes clear. Soon, it becomes the easiest way to walk. That is how habits are built, tiny steps, taken again and again, until the mind says, "This is the easiest path now." And once the mind reaches that point, change becomes natural. One afternoon, while sitting at his desk, Leo paused to think about something he had never considered before. If habits create paths in the mind, he wondered, what paths have I created without noticing? He remembered all the times he told himself negative things, all the times he believed he was not capable, all the times he held on to self-doubt. Those thoughts were habits too. Habits of the mind. Habits that had created deep paths he walked every day. But now, with his new morning routine, he was slowly creating new paths, paths of calmness, paths of intention, paths of self-belief. And that thought filled him with hope. On Friday evening, Leo invited Maya for a walk in the park. They talked about work, life, dreams, fears. As they walked under the tall trees, Maya asked him a question that hit him deeply. What do you want your habits to turn you into? Leo stopped walking for a moment. The question was simple, but it cut right to the heart of everything. He had never thought of habits that way, as something that shapes not just your day, but your identity. He took a slow breath and answered honestly, I want my habits to make me someone who does not give up on himself. Someone steady. Someone clear. Someone who grows a little every day. Maya nodded softly. Then build habits that speak to that version of you, she said. Because habits are like mirrors. They show you who you are becoming. That night, as Leo lay in bed, he thought about the kind of person he wanted to become. Not a perfect person. Not a successful person by society's standards. Just someone who felt at peace with himself. Someone who trusted himself. Someone who lived with intention. And he realized that his daily habits were already guiding him toward that future version of himself, not with loud changes, not with big goals, but with small steps repeated every day. In the quiet darkness of his room, Leo whispered to himself, I am becoming better, slowly, gently, one day at a time. And for the first time in a long time, he believed it. Tomorrow, his habits would continue. And so would the transformation. Leo woke up on a quiet Saturday morning, long before the noise of the city began. The sky was still dim, soft, and blue, like the world was taking a slow breath before waking up. He sat on the edge of his bed, feeling the gentle coolness of the floor under his feet, and he noticed something he had not felt in many years. He felt present. Not thinking about yesterday. Not worrying about tomorrow. Just here, in this small moment, in this small room, with his small habits. He walked to the kitchen and poured his morning water, watching the glass fill slowly, listening to the simple sound of the water. He drank it carefully, and with each sip he felt like he was watering something inside himself. Not his body, not his mind, but his sense of direction. He picked up his notebook, opened it, and wrote only 4 words, I feel something changing. He didn't know how to describe it in better English. He didn't know how to make it sound deep or poetic. But it was true. Something inside him was shifting. Something quiet. Something gentle. Something invisible from the outside, but strong from the inside. After writing, he stretched lightly, feeling the tightness in his back release slowly. And as he breathed deeply, he realized that the biggest changes in life do not look dramatic. They do not feel like fireworks. They feel like whispers. They feel like slowly opening a window in a dark room and letting the light enter, little by little. He began to understand that daily habits do something most people never notice. They change the way you move through the day. They change the way you react to stress. They change the way you speak to yourself. They change the way you see your own life. And all of these small shifts, invisible at first, slowly create a new version of you. After finishing his routine, Leo walked outside for a morning stroll. The air was fresh, and the trees along the street were softly moving with the breeze. As he walked, he felt calm, almost peaceful. He looked around and noticed things he used to walk past without seeing, the way the sunlight touched the rooftops, the sound of birds calling from the trees, the smell of warm bread coming from a small bakery nearby. It felt as if his senses had woken up. But the world had not changed. He had changed. And that small difference made everything feel new. He thought about his life before these habits. He remembered how he used to wake up in a rush, with a tight feeling in his chest, immediately thinking about the problems of the day. He remembered how he used to skip breakfast, hurry to work, and arrive already tired. He remembered how he used to feel disconnected from everything, even from himself. But now, only a few weeks later, he felt something else, a sense of control. A sense of space inside his mind. A sense of balance. He wondered how such tiny habits could create such a big feeling. And as he walked, he realized something meaningful. When you repeat small actions, you slowly build a relationship with yourself. A relationship of trust, of care, of discipline. And when you trust yourself, your whole life becomes easier. When he returned home, Leo decided to clean his apartment a little. Not because he had to, but because he felt like it. And as he cleaned, he noticed another small shift. His environment reflected his inner world. When he was stressed, his home looked messy. When he felt lost, things around him were left undone. But now, with his new habits, he felt lighter inside. And he naturally wanted his surroundings to feel lighter too. He realized that habits do not stay in one place. They spread. They influence other parts of your life. They create new energy that touches everything. Later that afternoon, Leo received a message from his friend Sam, who asked if he wanted to meet for coffee. They met at a small cafe near the river. Sam looked at Leo with curiosity, studying his calm expression. "You're different," Sam said. "I don't know what it is, but you look calmer. More focused." Leo smiled and nodded. "It's the small habits," he said softly. "They're changing me." Sam laughed lightly. "Changing you? How?" "You're just drinking water and writing a few words." But Leo didn't feel bothered. He simply replied, "Sometimes small things change the most." Sam didn't fully understand, but he respected it. Everyone is on their own journey, Leo thought. Everyone wakes up at their own time. On his walk back home, Leo thought deeply about Sam's reaction. Many people believe change must be big. They believe transformation requires huge energy, huge decisions, huge moments. But habits teach you the opposite truth. Big change grows from small actions repeated slowly. You don't see the growth at first. You don't feel the strength at first. You don't notice the transformation at first. But it's happening. Quietly. Patiently. Steadily. The next day, Leo faced a new challenge. He woke up feeling heavy, not in his body, but in his emotions. He didn't know why. Maybe it was tiredness. Maybe stress. Maybe just a slow morning. The old version of him would have ignored the habits on a day like this. The old version would have said, "Not today. I don't have the energy." But the new Leo, the one shaped by tiny habits, understood something important. The most important day to practice a habit is the day you don't feel like doing it. That is the day when the habit builds power. That is the day when discipline grows. That is the day when identity becomes stronger. So he drank the water. He wrote just one short sentence. He stretched for only 30 seconds. He didn't do much. But he did something. And afterward, he felt proud. Not because he did everything perfectly, but because he refused to break the chain. That afternoon, Leo visited a small bookstore. He walked slowly between the shelves, touching the spines of the books with curiosity. He didn't know exactly what he was looking for, but he trusted his instincts. Eventually, he found a small, simple book about daily routines and mindfulness. It was written in very easy English, which made it comfortable for him to read. He sat at a corner table and read a few pages. One sentence caught his attention deeply. "Your habits are the seeds of your future." He read it again. Your habits are the seeds of your future. The words felt powerful. They felt true. They felt like they were written for him. As he walked home with the book in his hand, he thought about the future. Not in a big, overwhelming way. Not in a stressful way. He thought about it in a soft, gentle way, like imagining a garden. If habits are seeds, then he was planting new seeds every morning. Seeds of calmness. Seeds of intention. Seeds of discipline. Seeds of growth. And if he kept watering these seeds every day, even with tiny actions, they would grow into something beautiful. That evening, Leo cooked a simple dinner. While cooking, he noticed something he had never seen before. His movements were slower, more mindful. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't thinking about 10 things at once. He was just cooking, just breathing, just being present. This presence, he realized, was something his habits had created. By practicing small moments of intention each morning, he was learning how to be intentional throughout the whole day. After dinner, Leo sat on his balcony again. The sky was filled with soft stars, shining gently like small reminders that everything in life grows slowly. He closed his eyes and let the night wind touch his face. He thought about the man he used to be, the man who felt lost, tired, rushed, disconnected. And then he thought about the man he was becoming, patient, aware, calm, connected. Not perfect. Not extraordinary. Just growing. And that felt enough. Then he whispered to himself, I don't see all the changes yet. But I feel them. And that is enough for now. Because some changes you cannot see with your eyes. You can only feel them with your soul. And in the next part of his journey, Leo would discover the truth that every human learns sooner or later. Habits don't just change your days, they change your identity. They shape who you believe you are. They shape the story you tell yourself. And the story you tell yourself becomes the life you live. But for now, Leo closed his eyes, breathed calmly, and let the quiet transformation continue inside him, one gentle day at a time. Leo woke up the following week with a new feeling resting quietly inside him, like a soft light warming the corners of his mind. He didn't know exactly when it began or how it grew, but he felt it now, strong and steady. He stood beside his bed, feeling the weight of the morning silence, and for the first time he understood that this silence wasn't empty, it was full of possibility. The sunlight touched his room the same way it always did, soft and slow, but today it felt like an invitation. He walked into the kitchen, poured his morning water, and drank it slowly. He opened his notebook, wrote a simple sentence about how he wanted his day to feel, and stretched his body with gentle care. These tiny habits felt familiar now, almost like breathing. But somewhere deep inside him, something had shifted. He felt like these habits weren't just actions anymore. They were pieces of who he was becoming. They were shaping him, guiding him, creating him. He felt like each morning was making him more himself, his true self, the one he had ignored for so long. When he finished his morning routine, Leo stood still for a moment, noticing the warmth in his chest. It felt like a quiet pride, a pride that didn't shout or show off. It was soft, almost shy, but it was there. He realized he trusted himself more now. Not fully, not perfectly, but more than before. And trust, he realized, is built slowly, like a bridge made of small stones placed gently one by one. His habits were these stones. Each morning he showed up, even for just a few minutes, the bridge grew stronger. And with a strong bridge, he could walk further. That day, Leo walked to work differently. His steps were slower, but not tired. They were calm, steady, intentional. He felt present in a way he never had before. The world around him looked the same: cars, buildings, people rushing, but he felt separate from the noise, like he was walking inside a bubble of quiet clarity. He noticed a woman watering plants outside her shop, her face peaceful. He noticed a child laughing while running toward school. He noticed two old men feeding pigeons at the park bench. It felt like life was no longer passing him by. He was inside it, part of it, awake to it. At work, something interesting happened. A problem came up, a difficult one, the kind that used to make Leo's heart race and his mind panic. But this time, he stayed calm. He breathed slowly, looked at the issue clearly, and felt in control. Even when the pressure rose, he didn't lose himself. His coworkers noticed it. Maya approached him softly and said, "You're handling things differently. You're more centered." Leo didn't know how to explain it, but he simply replied, "The mornings help." Maya smiled because she understood. She knew the power of grounding yourself before the world starts demanding things from you. During lunch, Leo sat outside, feeling the gentle warmth of the sun on his face. He thought about how he used to react to problems, stressed, anxious, overwhelmed. He remembered the days when even small tasks felt heavy, like he was dragging himself through the day. But now, because of his habits, he had more space inside him. More patience. More clarity. He felt like his mind was less crowded. And in that space, he was able to think calmly, make better decisions, and remain present. This, he realized, was one of the greatest gifts of small habits. They give your mind room to breathe. That evening, Leo met Maya again after work. They went for a walk through a quiet neighborhood filled with tall trees and soft lights glowing from windows. Maya asked him a question that stayed in his mind long after the walk ended. She said, "Have you ever thought about who you want to become in 5 years?" Leo stopped walking. The question was simple, but it felt like it opened a door inside him. "I'm not sure," he said honestly. "I used to think I wanted a big change, a new job, a new city, or something dramatic. But now, I'm beginning to think that who I become is less about big events and more about what I do every day." Maya smiled gently. "Exactly," she said. "The person you want to be is built from the things you repeat." As he walked home later that night, Leo repeated her words in his mind. "The person you want to be is built from the things you repeat." That sentence felt powerful. It felt like a map. It made him think of the habits he had practiced for the past weeks. Waking up early, drinking water, writing, stretching, breathing. These actions were small, almost invisible to others. But to him, they were messages. Messages that said, "This is who you are becoming." He realized that identity is not created through sudden moments. Identity is created through repetition, through consistent choices, through small actions done again and again until they become your natural way of living. When he reached his apartment, Leo looked around and noticed something new. His home felt different. Not because he bought new furniture or cleaned everything perfectly, but because he felt different inside it. He felt comfortable in his own space. He felt present in his own life. He felt like he belonged in his own story. And for the first time, he realized that the reason his home felt peaceful was because he was becoming peaceful. Environments reflect the people who live in them. And as Leo grew calmer, his home naturally grew calmer too. Later that night, Leo sat at his small desk with the window open. The cool night air touched his face, and the distant city sounds hummed softly like background music. He opened his notebook and began writing. He didn't write anything special. Just thoughts, feelings, moments from the day. As he wrote, he saw something clearly. His handwriting had changed. Before, his writing looked rushed, messy, almost anxious. But now the letters looked slower, more controlled, more peaceful. He smiled softly because he understood the deeper meaning. The way he wrote reflected the way he lived. His habits were shaping not only his actions, but also the energy behind his actions. The next morning, something surprising happened. Leo woke up and, without thinking, walked into his kitchen, and began his morning routine automatically. He drank water, wrote a few thoughts, stretched, and breathed calmly. He didn't force it. He didn't think about it. His body simply moved into the routine naturally. And that was when he understood something beautiful. When a habit becomes automatic, it becomes part of who you are. It becomes part of your identity. And when your habits are connected to your identity, everything becomes easier. As he sat with his notebook open, Leo wrote a sentence that felt like a revelation. I am the kind of person who takes care of himself. He stared at the sentence for a long time. These words were powerful because he never believed them before. For many years, he thought he was someone who forgot to care for himself, someone who didn't have discipline, someone who couldn't stay consistent. But now he had proof of the opposite. Every morning was proof. Every glass of water was proof. Every sentence he wrote was proof. Every small stretch was proof. He wasn't trying to be someone new. He was someone new. Later that week, Leo faced a difficult situation at work. Something went wrong with an important project, and the whole team felt stressed. Before his transformation, Leo would have panicked, doubted himself, blamed himself, or shut down. But now he took a deep breath, grounded himself, and approached the problem calmly. He listened to his teammates, asked clear questions, and offered simple solutions. He wasn't perfect, but he was present. And that made a difference. After the issue was resolved, his manager approached him and said, "You handled that very well. You're showing strong leadership." Leo felt a warm wave inside him, not pride in the traditional sense, but a soft confidence. A confidence born from consistency. A confidence built from tiny habits. A confidence that came from knowing he could trust himself. That evening, Leo stopped at the park on his way home. He sat on a bench under a large tree, listening to the wind move through the leaves. He watched people walking, talking, laughing, living. And he realized something important. His life didn't change because he forced himself to be different. His life changed because he changed the things he did repeatedly. He realized that self-development isn't about big achievements. It's about small actions that shape your inner world. And your inner world shapes everything else. As he sat there, he whispered to himself, "I am becoming someone I didn't know I could be." And he meant it. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a loud way, but in a quiet, honest way. He felt like he was meeting a new part of himself every day. A part that was patient. A part that was steady. A part that believed in growth. And these parts had always been inside him. They were just hidden under years of stress, noise, and habits that didn't serve him. That night, when Leo returned home, he opened his window and looked at the city lights glowing softly in the distance. He imagined his life 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, not filled with huge changes or dramatic events, but filled with simple habits that guided him through each day with clarity and peace. He imagined himself waking up early, drinking water, writing, stretching, reflecting, staying calm during challenges, growing a little every day. And the vision felt peaceful. Not exciting. Not overwhelming. Just peaceful. And that peace was exactly what he had always searched for. Before going to bed, Leo wrote one more sentence in his notebook. Small habits shape who I am becoming. He closed the notebook slowly, feeling grateful. And as he lay down to sleep, he realized that his true transformation had already begun, not in big ways, but in small, invisible ways that were growing stronger each day. Tomorrow would bring new habits, new growth, new layers of the person he was becoming. And he was ready. For several weeks, Leo moved through his days with a quiet rhythm, a gentle balance, a sense of direction he had never felt before. But life, as it always does, eventually decided to test him. It began with something small, a late night of work, a stressful meeting, a few hours of lost sleep, but those small things began to grow, slowly stacking on top of each other like heavy stones. One morning, Leo woke up feeling exhausted, not just in his body, but in his mind. The sunlight entering his room felt too bright. The air felt too heavy. His bed felt warm and inviting, like it didn't want to let him go. He stared at the ceiling, knowing what he should do, his morning routine, his water, his writing, his stretching, but he didn't want to. The thought of getting up felt like climbing a mountain. For a moment, the old voice inside him returned, the one he knew too well, the one that whispered, "Just skip today. Just rest. It's only one day. It doesn't matter." And Leo almost listened. He almost stayed in bed. He almost let the old habit win. But then, from somewhere deep inside him, a softer voice appeared, a voice born from the weeks of small habits he had built. It said, "Just do the smallest thing." And Leo realized that even the smallest version of a habit was a victory. He didn't jump out of bed with energy. He didn't move quickly. He didn't feel motivated. But he slowly pushed the blanket aside, placed his feet on the ground, and stood up. His body felt heavy, but he walked to the kitchen anyway. He poured half a glass of water instead of a full one. He didn't write a whole page, he wrote one sentence. "Today is hard, but I'm here." He didn't stretch for a minute, he stretched for 10 seconds. And when he finished, he didn't feel amazing. He didn't feel powerful. But he felt steady. He felt grounded. He felt like he had protected something important inside himself. And that gave him a quiet strength as he walked into his day. But the week didn't get easier. Work became more stressful. A project deadline moved suddenly. Leo had to stay late almost every night. His sleep became irregular. His meals became rushed. He felt pressure building, and with each day, his habits grew harder to maintain. One evening, when he finally returned home, exhausted and drained, he sat on his couch with his head in his hands. He felt frustrated, tired, and almost defeated. "Why is this happening now?" he whispered to himself. "Just when I was finally feeling good." But after a few moments of silence, he realized something important. Life will always test the things you build. Not because you're failing, but because growth requires strength, and strength is built through challenge. A plant does not grow tall without wind. A muscle does not become strong without resistance. A person does not become disciplined without difficult days. This was one of his difficult days. The next morning, when the alarm rang, Leo felt the same heaviness as before. But this time, he didn't wait. He didn't argue with himself. He didn't negotiate. He stood up immediately, because he knew that hesitation was dangerous. Hesitation was the doorway that let old habits enter again. He walked into the kitchen, poured his water, and drank it slowly. He didn't rush. He didn't push himself. He just showed up. And that act, showing up, became the most powerful part of his morning. He wrote only 2 simple words in his notebook, "Still here." And those words kept him grounded through another long, stressful day. At work, Leo felt pressure from many directions, questions, problems, deadlines, expectations, but something inside him had changed. Even though he was tired, even though he felt overwhelmed, he didn't panic like before. He didn't fall into self-doubt. He didn't lose control. Instead, he took slow breaths. He solved one problem at a time. He moved gently through the chaos. Maya noticed it and said, "How do you stay so calm right now?" Leo smiled softly. "My mornings keep me steady," he said. And as he said it, he realized how true it was. His habits were not just routines anymore, they were anchors. They held him steady during storms. By the end of the week, Leo felt completely drained. His body needed rest. His mind needed quiet. So after finishing work on Friday, he walked to the park and sat under a large tree. The leaves above him moved softly in the wind, making a quiet, soothing sound. He leaned back and closed his eyes, letting the sounds of nature calm the noise in his mind. He thought deeply about the past few weeks, the progress he made, the struggles he faced, and the strength he didn't know he had. And as he sat there, something became clear to him. Discipline is not about being perfect. It's not about doing everything well every day. Discipline is about staying connected to your habits even when life becomes difficult. Discipline is the decision to return again and again, even when you feel tired, stressed, or discouraged. While sitting under the tree, Leo remembered a story he once heard, a story about a river. The river does not cut through stone because it is strong. It cuts through stone because it is consistent. And as he repeated the story in his mind, he felt a deep understanding. He wasn't trying to be strong every day. He was trying to be consistent. And consistency builds strength. Consistency builds identity. Consistency builds a new life. And even though this week was difficult, he stayed consistent. Even if he did the smallest actions, he stayed connected to the path he had chosen. That evening, when he returned home, Leo didn't feel like doing anything. But he felt like reflecting. He opened his notebook, sat near the window, and wrote slowly, "Hard days are part of the journey. They are not a sign to stop. They're a sign to continue." As he wrote the words, he felt the truth in them. He realized that difficult days were not the enemy. They were the training ground. They were the place where his new identity was being shaped. Anyone can stay consistent when life is easy. But only those who truly transform are the ones who stay consistent when life becomes heavy. The next morning, something beautiful happened. Leo woke up before his alarm, naturally and peacefully. He felt rested. He felt calm. He felt lighter. It was as if his body and mind finally understood the rhythm he was trying to create. He drank his morning water with a smile. He wrote in his notebook with ease. He stretched with comfort. And when he finished, he felt grateful, not because the morning was perfect, but because he made it through a difficult week without giving up on himself. Later that day, Leo met Maya again. They walked near the river, watching the sunlight dance on the surface of the water. Maya said, "You seem stronger after this week." Leo nodded. "I think difficult days show you who you are becoming," he said quietly. "This week showed me that I can support myself, even when life gets messy." Maya looked at him with warm eyes and said, "That's what habits do. They make you stronger without you noticing. Until one day, you realize you're changing." As they walked, Leo felt something shift inside him, not a dramatic shift, but a gentle, deep one. He realized he was no longer chasing transformation. He was living inside it. He was not trying to become someone new in one day. He was becoming someone new over many days. And each difficult moment, each small habit, each tiny step was part of that transformation. That night, Leo went to bed early, feeling peaceful. He felt proud of himself, not for being perfect, not for doing everything correctly, but for staying committed during the hardest days. As he closed his eyes, he whispered softly, "I am stronger than I thought." And for the first time in a long time, he truly believed it. The coming days would bring new challenges, new lessons, new discoveries. But Leo knew something now, something powerful, something life-changing. Habits are not about doing something every day. Habits are about becoming someone who returns to themselves every day. And with that understanding, he drifted into sleep, ready for the next stage of his journey. Leo woke before sunrise on a quiet Sunday morning, long before the city began to breathe, long before footsteps touched the sidewalks, long before car engines filled the air with their familiar hum. The sky outside his window was still in that half-dreaming state, a soft blue turning slowly into gentle gold. It was the kind of morning that felt new, not because of anything happening outside, but because of what was happening inside him. He sat up, stretched his arms slowly, and felt a calm strength inside his chest, a strength built from weeks of small actions, small choices, and small victories. He stood beside his bed with bare feet touching the cool floor, and he breathed deeply. This breath felt different from all the others he had taken in his life. This breath felt earned. He walked into his kitchen, poured his morning water, and watched the glass fill the same way it did every day, but he felt something deeper now. This simple act wasn't just the start of a habit anymore. It was the symbol of a lifestyle, a reminder of who he had become. He drank it slowly, feeling the coolness travel through his body, grounding him in the moment. After drinking, he opened his notebook and wrote without thinking, letting the pen move across the page as naturally as his breath. He wrote about how grateful he felt. He wrote about how far he had come. He wrote about how different his life felt now, not because everything around him had changed, but because he had changed from the inside out. His writing looked calm, steady, confident. And he smiled softly because he remembered the way he used to write before, rushed, nervous, scattered, unsure. Now, his handwriting told a story of someone grounded, patient, growing. As he stretched his body slowly, feeling the tension release gently from his muscles, Leo realized something important. The habits he had practiced for so many days were no longer things he needed to do. They had become the way he lived, the way he moved, the way he thought. They were part of his identity now, woven into the fabric of who he was. They shaped his mornings, guided his days, and steadied his nights. They gave him a sense of direction that had been missing for years. And now, standing there in the soft morning light, Leo felt a kind of peace he never knew he could feel. After finishing his morning routine, Leo stepped outside for a walk. The streets were still empty, and the early air felt cool and gentle against his skin. The world felt fresh, almost like a blank page waiting for new words. As he walked, he thought about the life he used to live, the rushed mornings, the anxiety, the self-doubt, the feeling of being stuck. He remembered how lost he used to feel, how he moved through the day with no sense of purpose, how everything felt heavy and out of control. And now, only a few months later, he was walking with clarity, with calmness, with confidence. The difference was not magic. It was not luck. It was not a sudden event. The difference was built slowly, one morning at a time. Leo reached a small park where the first rays of sunlight touched the grass, making it shine like tiny stars spread across the ground. He sat on a bench and watched the world wake up. He listened to birds calling softly from the trees. He watched the sky become brighter, warmer, more alive. And as he watched, he thought about how habits had changed him. They didn't just give him routines. They gave him stability. They gave him intention. They gave him a new identity. They gave him a new story to live inside. And that was the greatest gift of all. He closed his eyes, letting the morning wind move gently through his hair, and he whispered softly to himself, "This is who I am now." The words felt honest, peaceful, real. And for a moment, he just sat there in silence, feeling the truth deepen inside him. Later that day, Leo met Maya at a small cafe they both liked. They sat by the window, sipping warm drinks, watching people walk by on the busy street. Maya looked at him for a long moment with a quiet smile and said, "You've changed so much. Not just your habits. You." Leo nodded slowly. He didn't try to pretend he had everything figured out. He didn't try to impress anyone. He simply said, "I think I'm finally becoming the person I always wanted to be." Maya's smile widened. "You didn't become him," she said softly. "You uncovered him. He was always there." Her words touched something deep inside Leo, and for a moment he felt emotional. He realized she was right. The person he had become was not someone new. He was the real version of himself, the version he had buried under years of stress and old habits and fear. The habits didn't create a new Leo. They revealed the true Leo, the Leo who cared, who tried, who grew, who believed. That afternoon, after saying goodbye to Maya, Leo walked along the river. The light reflected on the water in soft ripples, like silver threads moving gently with the current. As he walked, he thought about the future. Not with anxiety, not with fear, but with calm curiosity. He didn't know exactly what would happen in the next year or the next 5 years, but he felt ready for whatever came. Because he knew he had something powerful now, something he could rely on, something he could return to, something he could build on every day. His habits were like small anchors holding him steady in the flow of life. They were like quiet friends who walked beside him. They were like tiny seeds that he watered daily, knowing they would grow into something beautiful over time. He reached a quiet area by the river and sat on the grass. As he looked at the water, he asked himself a question he had not asked before. What do I want to give back to the world? And the answer came gently: peace, clarity, growth. He realized that everything he had learned on this journey, about consistency, about identity, about patience, about returning to yourself, was something many people needed. They didn't need complicated lessons or big breakthroughs. They needed reminders that small habits could change everything. Leo imagined himself sharing his story with others one day, maybe with friends, maybe with coworkers, maybe with strangers who felt lost the way he once felt. And he felt something warm inside him, a sense of purpose. He didn't need to change the whole world. He only needed to share the small truths that changed his world. As the sun lowered in the sky, Leo stood up and walked home slowly, enjoying each step. When he entered his apartment, he felt grateful. Not for the objects inside it, not for the furniture or the walls, but for the peace he carried into the space. His home felt like a reflection of his inner world, calm, simple, intentional. He made a simple dinner and ate slowly, appreciating every bite. He cleaned the kitchen with gentle movements, feeling no rush. He sat on the couch with his notebook and wrote about the day. He wrote about clarity. He wrote about gratitude. He wrote about the soft joy of living with intention. And then he wrote something that made him pause. I am proud of who I am becoming. The words felt beautiful. They felt earned. They felt true. Before going to bed, Leo stepped onto his balcony and looked at the night sky. The stars were faint but visible, shining like quiet promises. He breathed in the cool night air and whispered softly, "Thank you." He wasn't sure who he was thanking: life, himself, the universe, but he felt grateful for the journey, for the challenges, for the small habits that rebuilt him from the inside out. He realized he no longer needed to search for transformation. He was living inside transformation every day. It was not dramatic. It was not loud. It was slow, gentle, patient, steady. It was the kind of transformation that stays with you forever because it comes from within, not from outside. As he lay in bed, he closed his eyes and felt a sense of peace filling his entire body. He thought about tomorrow. And he smiled, because he knew exactly how it would begin, with a simple glass of water, a few quiet words in his notebook, and a gentle stretch. Tiny actions. Tiny steps. Tiny seeds that would continue to shape the life he was building one day at a time. And as he drifted into sleep, Leo knew one final truth, one that he wished every person in the world could understand. You don't need to change your whole life at once. You only need to change the next 5 minutes. And if you repeat those 5 minutes every day, your entire life will transform. Quietly, patiently, beautifully, just like his did. Thank you so much for joining today's lesson here at Mr. English Lab. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below telling me what you want to learn next. Your support helps the channel grow and helps me create more lessons for you. Take care, keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next class.